Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Coffee Show with Kirk. Another special episode today. 3-time Australian Barista Champion, protector of the realm, leader of the Andals, Jack Simpson. Welcome back to the Coffee Show. Welcome to the Coffee Show. This
Thank
is the
you
first
so
time
much.
you've been on.
Yeah, well, I think it's funny you just mentioned that. But 3-time Australian Barista Champion. 3 times I've been on a podcast with you, I think.
Yeah, no, it's getting that way.
Yeah.
So, well, what are the occasions? So, one on It's Just Coffee when I did that, and then we had Sub-Zero with you, Matt, and Anthony, and now just you and me, one-on-one.
It's good.
Yeah, no, I like it. I like it a bunch. Less than 2 weeks ago now, you won the Australian Barista Championship for the 3rd time. So, I mean, I'll ask you in greater detail a bit later. But what's the instant reaction?
Yeah, it feels a lot longer than 2 weeks. Like that, it feels like months ago now.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. It was obviously amazing to win a 3rd time, and not something that I was expecting. I sort of set myself up to not win.
Yeah,
I sort of put up that barrier, and then obviously I did. And yeah, so I guess it was a bit of shock this time, and but yeah, obviously a lot of excitement as well. So
we'll break that down in a bit later. We're going to talk about obviously your road to the World Barista Championship as much as we can. Some of the things about preparing for a comp. Connection with producers is another big one coming up in the topics today. How does being a barista champion relate to the real world? That's where I think I want to allocate most of our time. What we be remembered for, and then we'll see whatever life takes us. But first things first, I have a bit of a story that I need to tell, and it comes from yesterday. It just speaks to the absurdity of cafe culture these days, and it's to do with strawberry matcha. So we put a strawberry matcha on the menu at Project Zero Coffee. You can buy some if you really need to. And so we're in a co-working space here. So we shared the office with a couple of other people, and I wanted them to try the strawberry matcha. So I got 6. I carried 6 in the trays, and I've never experienced anything like this. It's kind of like I've got a really cute dog and people are stopping me for the dog. People were honking at me like, oh, strawberry matcha. Like this is crazy. And then there was this other woman that honked at me, and she looked at me like I was Brad Pitt without a shirt on in the 90s. Like, oh, strawberry matcha. I've never experienced anything like it.
I got to try it.
Well, yeah, you do. But is matcha the best thing that's ever happened to coffee culture, or the worst thing that's ever happened to it? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not going to comment on that because I've got a strong opinion on it. But hey, you drink what you like.
What's your strong opinion?
Oh, I'm just not a big fan of it. It just tastes like seaweed to me.
Yeah,
like I'm trying, like I look at people drinking, I see that they enjoy it, and I want to enjoy it. It's like olives, before you enjoy olives, it's like, oh, they look cool, I want to try it. But matcha, I got to keep pushing.
You haven't had a good one. There's levels to it. There's like Starbucks espresso, and then Axel World Barista Championship espresso. Like there are levels to it. So I mean,
I haven't had it yet.
I was a non-believer. I'm now a believer. There's been a bit more bollocks coffee public stories in the media again lately, and a lot of people send me things online whenever there's a story about coffee being $12 or something allegedly. They always send it to me, but there's been some more tomfoolery in the media, I guess. And I mean, I don't really know where I'm going with this, but you don't have to believe it. You don't have to believe it. We're not there yet. But just for some reason, journalists love to write that stuff. What's your take on that? Do you have a take on that?
On what's that? Like as in?
Just like kind of how people are making up how expensive things are going to be.
Yeah. It's tricky because I feel like people are getting 2 issues confused.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I think in Australia, we obviously pay, quite a high minimum wage, which is amazing. But I think this, and then, rental, cost of rent going up and just cost of living, et cetera, I think that is pushing up a lot of prices. And I don't think it's the actual price of green. So I think people are getting confused, the cost of running a cafe and what you need to charge to make a living as a cafe owner, and the cost of green coffee. So I think these 2 issues are getting merged, when I think can be slightly dangerous when they're combined together, and they should be thought separately.
Well, I feel like there's a bit more information coming to light about actually Australia is some of the cheapest coffee in the developed world. And I don't know. I mean, I guess no one likes paying more for things. I'm the same. And I think no one wants to pay more for coffee because people love it so much is my take on that. It's like, and they still do. So, I mean, I don't have really that many reasons to get worked up, but like, in actual fact, we got some of the cheapest coffee in the developed world. And that's
100%.
something that people should know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I notice every time I travel, it's always more expensive.
And lower quality.
Yes. Yeah. 100%.
So, I mean, we've got a fantastic coffee industry here in Australia, and something that anyone listening to that is based in Melbourne, Australia, you should be proud of. Right. Australian Barista Champion 3 times running. You said just before you were preparing yourself to not win.
Yeah.
Why?
It's hard because I think you ride all these emotions with barista competition. And for someone like me, and I'm sure a lot of other competitors, train so hard for this one event. And yeah, I can't speak for everyone, but I build it up in my head where it's like this one moment, everything needs to be perfect. And if it's not, then you fail. So I think it's sort of like a sort of a protection where it's like, if you don't win, you're still content with it. So yeah, it's a tricky thing, right? Because there's only one winner and there's a lot of people competing at national level and around the world, right? So you're more likely not going to win. So I think you need to try and sort of realize what else you can get out of barista competitions other than sort of just winning that sort of trophy at the end. So being okay with or content with not being that winner.
What are some of the other things that you can get out of it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we're going to touch on it in a bit later on, but I think it was for me, especially this year, already having a little bit of a platform, using that and celebrating producers and who I'm working with as well. So hopefully I achieved that this year, and that was big motivating factor, and to try and put these producers on the spotlight, because one thing that I and Matt Crowley, who's my coach, we spoke about after Busan when I came second, is that there's 6 people in the final, or 7 last year, but they're all listed on the screen after all the results are called. But no producers are listed, no coaches are listed, and I think there's a lot of people that put a lot of hard work and effort. So I just want to make sure that I am casting a spotlight on these people as well at the same time.
Well, my next question was going to be, what's different about what you did this year? And so I feel like I've seen an evolution over the years, obviously knowing you personally and having attended some of the practice sessions you've done. The first iteration was, I remember you were sort of talking about craftsmanship almost, like, explaining the difference between a loaf of bread that's like high quality and low quality, and applying that to coffee. Then last year you did the wave machine, which we'll touch on a bit later, which I think is going to have huge implications for the coffee industry. And then this year it's much more about, like what you just said, recognizing people along the way, relationships with people, and it felt a lot more personal. So yeah, give us your version.
Yeah, I mean, I think with any barista competition, I want to challenge myself. So I just don't want to do the same thing or deliver the same idea. So I want to sort of explore a few different options. And first year I had a few years off, just came off the back of helping Anthony train. So I signed up quite late to that one. So I think I sort of threw it together. And last year when I spoke out the Waved and Constant Improvement, I felt like that was a lot about me and my work ethic, right? And that was something my approach to barista competition. So it was exciting to talk about that. And then obviously the Wave slotted in perfectly, and, a bit of innovation. So that I was really happy with that routine last year. And then this year I wanted to try a different approach and make it a bit more personal and less about what I can do, and sort of more about celebrating those producers that I served on stage. So I think it was a bit of an evolution, and I was really happy I went down this path, and daunting at the start when I decided to do it, but super glad I did.
But yeah, it's really interesting because I actually feel like this is the best version of you I've seen. And,
thank you.
Some people might be listening to this thinking, what the hell is a barista competition? And, long story short, you've got to make 12 drinks of 3 different varieties. So 4 milk-based coffees, 4 espressos, 4 signature drinks, and basically they've just got to taste excellent, and you need to explain it, get it done within 15 minutes. And there's a few other rules and stuff to follow. But this is the best I've seen you do. I feel like when I was watching, I thought, geez, he looks so much more comfortable. And the delivery was just, it was much less focused on, like you were saying, to a concept around some new technique you've made, but more focused on a lot of the people that helped you get there along the way. And, you know, within the context of, you know, being a 3-time champion, this will be your 3rd attempt at the Worlds. It's a pretty cool character, like story arc.
Yeah, and I think it only happened because I had those last 2 opportunities at the World Barista Championship, and they opened a lot of doors for me, and I could build a lot of connections, and I had a lot of travel. So that has helped me come up with these stories and this presentation because, it's hard. If it was my first year competing, I wouldn't have had these stories to tell. So very grateful that I've had these opportunities and then I can tell these stories.
Do you feel a bit of agony in your prep for these sorts of things? Because the hours are really long. You've got to fit it in with your day job. You feel the pressure of probably, maybe you do or don't, but you feel the pressure of being a champion. It's like anything less than winning Australia would be effectively a step down.
Yeah.
So like, walk us through that. What's like, as much as detail as you want to tell, like what are some of the hardest things you have to go through?
Oh yeah, it is tough. Like, and it's a decision to go down this path, right? Like I could easily just, you know, do a barista competition and not train these hours that I do, but something that I want to dedicate and do is to the best of my ability. Otherwise, you know, I'll be left disappointed. So it's tough. It's tough, especially this year. I think and a lot of these barista competitions have been close together. So I'll do this big campaign and then I'll only have, you know, 7 weeks till the World Barista Championship. So I don't get any time to sort of relax. So yeah, I know it's super tough and but I love it. Like it's worth going through this journey because on the other side, it's like you can see your hard work has paid off and I wouldn't change it.
The theory of kind of thinking of yourself like that, it's like, oh, how good would it be to be there? But then I guess that feeling of looking back and reflecting on the hard work, it's kind of a good thing to see, right?
Yeah, 100%. At the time, obviously, it's a struggle because, I mean, this campaign I think was probably the toughest that I've done, and I was sleeping maybe 5 hours a night, just because I was so stressed. And yeah, like I did feel a little bit of pressure coming back as the Australian champion, but not so much where I needed to win, but it was more I want to make sure that I execute on the level that I want to execute on. And yeah, it's just I think, well, winning this year was sort of almost like a bit of a relief. Like it was not so much that I won and I got the award. It was more sort of like, yeah, I got on stage and I did exactly what I wanted to do. And I was super happy I got it done.
Well, and I feel like, in hearing that, giving a shout out to Gabriel Tan, who came second as well, because it's been you and him at the top for like 3 or 4 years now.
Yeah.
And, you know, I feel for him because he's incredibly professional. He's incredibly diligent. He makes great coffee and he works really, really, really hard.
Yeah.
And just the problem is he's come up against you every time. And like, you know, he's someone that like, even though he's better than that, like he's a champion to me.
For sure.
And, you know, I feel like, you know, hopefully he goes again next year and well, he is. He's competing again this weekend. And, you know, he should not give up because he's world championship material.
Yeah, he'll crush it. And just on Gab as well, I think that's a big part of my success is having people like him who keep going every year because, like to know that I'm coming up against like world-class competitors has sort of helped me keep motivated. And I wouldn't have trained as hard as I did if it wasn't for people like Gab and, you know, Hugh last year and all the top 6, to be honest. Like just the level is crazy. So knowing that people like Gab are competing, it's what keeps you in that room an extra hour every night, making sure I do that extra run through because I know they're there.
Yeah. No, I like that. I like the level of competition as well. But road to Milan. So you've not had the luxury of being able to compete in the World Championship at home. So every time you've got to travel and there's a lot of gear that has to go with you when you do that. So what are some of the logistics that goes behind it? So like the logistics, the planning for it. Yeah. I was speaking to your boss, Dave Macon, the other day, and he's saying, look, this is the next day after the competition. We're looking at booking tickets for Milan. We're doing all these things now. So what happens now?
Yeah. Well, I mean, last year, like you're talking about logistics, we traveled over with 150 kilos of equipment and supplies for the barista competition last year in Busan, not including personal luggage. So it's it's a bit of a mission, but we get it done. But yeah, now looking into the next World Barista Championship, obviously we need to plan for it and think about these logistics. But I try and save that until a month before competition, and sort of just think about what's possible now and what am I going to change for this routine, and how am I going to make it better. But there is a lot of thought that needs to go into it, and I'm glad I've got someone like Dave who's going to help me get through these hurdles, because there's so much to think about. And it's if you forget something in a national competition, you can just duck home or ring up someone and say, hey, do you mind just bringing that extra liter of milk down? It's a lot different. So I have to be very methodical and
especially if you go to a country with like a language barrier or something like that. And
100%.
That would.
But I'm lucky. I've done it 2 times before, so I think I've got a bit of a strategy on how to take things over. And but it's always a challenge.
And then when you're preparing for a competition in general, so like let's go through what you do to actually prepare yourself.
Yeah.
So obviously you need to remember a 15-minute speech, which is challenging because you might have points that you just sort of elaborate on in your own words during the thing, or a lot of people will remember it verbatim, word for word.
Yes.
So that, and you've kind of like, there's a lot of nuance to structuring that as well. Like it's almost like there's a physical element to it. There's an educational element to it as well. So like clear communication, like is what I'm saying comprehensible while unpacking a somewhat complex idea?
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's a challenge, right? It's something we always have to go through. And I think a bit of a key to my success is we've always invited a lot of people to watch my run-throughs and get that feedback to make sure that I can deliver. I'm connecting with judges and I'm obviously serving good coffees at the same time. So, and having a team like Matt and Dave who will watch countless amount of run-throughs, and a lot of the guys at Axel do the same thing. And I feel sorry for them because I know how tough it is to listen to the same thing over and over again. But it's one of those things you need to do, right? Because in my head, I get used to it. I'm like, I know exactly what I'm saying, and like, I'm relaxed and I know what's going on. But for someone to hear it for the first time, that needs to stick and it needs to be quite digestible. So, always getting people in to try that.
Just on Dave as well, he's had a really interesting arc relating to competition as well, because I remember your colleague, Anthony Douglas, he's a World Barista Champion in 2022, and Dave was so he felt like he was so done with it, but he supported you. I feel like he's really come around to competition now and seems a lot more open to it. So, I mean, just a side plot there. He's really changed his mindset too.
Yeah, I think he might say that he is done with it, but he loves it.
Yeah.
And he's always a good driving source of inspiration for me. Obviously, he's had a lot of success early on, but he always pushes me to keep trying harder. And if it wasn't for him, I think even this year probably wouldn't have competed. So always pushes me to keep trying, which is great.
What does a practice session look like for competition? Like what is it for, the person that's tuning in, I'll learn a bit more about the Australian Barista Champion. Like, what does a practice session look like?
It's always a little bit different. I think now, we've got 3.5 months till Milan. So a training session at the moment is going to look quite different to, a week before competition. Once I get my routine, it's just like I do routine after routine after routine and I perfect it. So I know exactly what I'm doing with my hands, at what time, I've got time checks and movements and, I practice for anything that could go wrong and how I'm going to shave time out to make sure I finish within 15 minutes. But at the moment, it's a little harder, right? It's thinking about ideas and trying to implement that into a 15-minute routine. So it can be difficult because you've got something and it's like, okay, how do we improve it? What do we do? You got to, sense check it with the team as well. So a session right now is sort of just thinking about ideas and how we're going to implement that. So I always compare it to sort of like running a race. Like if you're training for a marathon, you can run for 2 hours one day and then you can rest for the rest of the day. But barista competition, it always feels like you're always thinking there's always something to do, and it's hard to switch off. But not comparing barista competitions to marathons, because marathons are very hard. But it's just one of those things. It's hard for me to switch off and say, okay, I'm done with that. So it's a round the clock thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, like it's its own sort of tough competition, isn't it? Because you've got 15 minutes to shine, and one small thing can just derail the whole thing. So you've got to be so polished, don't you?
Yeah.
That's one of the less spoken about things. Your connection to producers. So the other day I asked you, obviously you've got to choose a really amazing coffee when you do something like this. And I asked you, what coffee do you think you'll use? And the answer you gave was only someone that I have a connection with.
Yes.
Why?
100%. I think it's important for me. And I think I said it in, for anyone that did watch my routine, I was talking about, my inspiration of competing this year. And that was this connection that I formed with Jonathan and Alejandra from Fingerzaza. And that was literally the driving factor for me to compete this year. And also, I visited Jamison this year as well. And from those two visits, it sort of really sparked me to compete this year. And it's more important for me to represent these producers than win a competition.
So you had a bit of a special moment once you won this competition where straight away you called the producer, Jonathan Gasco in Colombia, and he's just elated that you've won using his coffee. What does it feel like because it's a bit of a big deal, right? And, for producers that may not have won a Cup of Excellence or had their coffee recognized, had their work recognized like that, it's pretty substantial.
Yeah. I mean, I'll never speak on behalf of a producer or try and predict how they'll feel about, someone using their coffee. But I can, for Jonathan, I think me and him have had a special relationship, and that sort of formed from Busan and meeting him there. I've since visited him twice and stayed at his house and, spent a lot of time with his family. And so I think we've got this friendship now, and it's like I was touching on before, this is, the big inspiration of me competing. And I felt like it sort of transcends coffee almost, where it's, we've got this friendship. And I think he was probably more happy for my success than his own, to be honest. But I think he's in his own right is such an amazing producer and producing some world-class coffees. And I think I just know that he's gone through a lot of struggles early on in his coffee career, and he's finally had some, produced some amazing coffees over the last, 3 or 4 years. And I'm just so grateful that I can share his coffee on not only the Australian stage, but the world stage as well.
Yeah. And that's something like, it just clicks to me. Like you imagine yourself, I don't know, whether it's starting a business or starting some new endeavor, and for so long you don't accomplish much, or like you don't make enough money, you don't get to the milestone that you wanted to, but then you finally do, and all the hard work pays off. And like I feel like there's a difference between hearing something and understanding it, and that's where I feel like there's a big disconnect in coffee relating to producers. It's like, well, I mean, we look at like Panama producers, for example, with all this glory and stuff like that, but like this is a huge accomplishment for someone like Jonathan, who can now earn, sufficient money, and like something that should really be applauded.
Yeah, but I think, he's doing amazing things, and he would have had a lot of spotlight regardless if I use his coffee or not, to be honest. And, I am just super proud that I see his coffee picked up by, importers, all different countries around the world. And his coffee's so good. So I'm so privileged to be able to use his coffee.
Over to the other producer now. And again, I bring up this sort of concept of hearing something and understanding it, because like when we talk about inclement climate change, changing weather patterns, whatever, relating to coffee producing areas, like a lot of the time I feel like people just hear it but don't understand it. And then you spoke about in your routine Jamison Savage, who owns Finca Deborah. So Jamison Savage, owner of Finca Deborah, but he also has had a different farm called Morgan Estate Coffee.
Yes.
And so I think you alluded to in your routine that effectively Morgan Estate, because of, wild weather, natural disaster a few years ago, can't produce coffee anymore. Is that the case?
Yes. I believe he's just started to produce coffee again. Don't quote me on that, but I believe he has. But yeah, obviously that wiped out most of his farm, and he couldn't really produce any coffee in that farm. So
when you say wiped out most of the coffee, is it like the trees got ripped out?
Well, yeah. So when I visited Finca Deborah when I was there in February, and he had a lot of landslides. So he had a lot of rain that season, and like we walk around this beautiful farm, these beautiful kept trees, and you just get to this section where it's just literally down the hill, huge landslides, and you just see these trees piled up down the bottom, and it's just completely wiped out. And obviously, I'm not a coffee producer, but from my understanding, a lot of the success from Panamanian coffees, and especially in that Volcan region, other than obviously amazing skill, is like the volcanic soil. So, and that's in the topsoil. So as soon as that gets taken away with the landslide, yes, you can plant something there, but it's not going to have the volcanic soil that it once did. So, it's one of those things, I think, with Panamanian coffees, from the outside, you look, it's like, oh, these coffees are expensive, and everyone looks to these coffees, but I don't think everyone realizes how much work and effort goes into it, and how much risk is involved. Like, to get to Finger Deborah is a challenge in itself. Like, we needed to hire a 4-wheel drive, and it's, unpaved roads, and it's a challenge, and it's, these trees can't be planted close together, and it's very difficult climate to grow these amazing coffee trees. So, I spoke a bit about value of Jamison's coffee, and it's not just a price tag.
Well, it's just such a shame to think about, because I remember I've had quite a few coffees from Morgan Estate, and they're incredible. Every bit worthy of being in Best of Panama or used in a competition, whatever. And to think that, like those issues that kind of are foretold, I feel like we've been hearing about climate change being a looming issue for coffee for, as long as I've been in the industry. Mm-hmm. But the reality of it's here now. And it's not just something that, people are theorizing that could happen. It's here now. Mm-hmm. And, it's in what we've just spoken about now, it's different weather patterns in Brazil, and Vietnam for that matter. And they're affecting the price and, the supply. They're here now.
Yeah. And I mean, I was in Colombia as well, and it was the dry season, and it rained every day. So that affects, harvest and how the coffees produce cherries, right? And flowering, and it has a huge impact. So yeah, it's one of those struggles that these producers are facing. And obviously we're buying coffees from the top of the mountain, so there's not much space to move. So,
and what you're saying about actually getting to the farm as well, I went to Bolivia in 2018, and I almost had a mental breakdown on the car ride to the farm from La Paz, because it's like a 8-hour drive, but 200-kilometer journey, because the roads are so bad. And some of the roads in Bolivia are the most dangerous in the world. And it was raining when we were driving, and there's rock sliding down the mountain. It's bumpy like this, and you're jet lagged, and you can't sleep because you hit something, your head hits the side of the car or something, because it's just getting there is crazy. Like, just shit. I don't even know how they ship it. Like,
for sure.
How do they build infrastructure on these things? Like, because to get things there, it's just like, it's incredibly challenging.
Part of that drive is on a paved road, which is like nice and winding. It's beautiful, right? But it was like brand new. And that was one of the first things I mentioned. I was like, oh, that road's like really nice to get here, other than the last few kilometers, which is like steep and rocky and almost impossible. But the other 90%. And then, Jamison said, we lost that in in huge landslides. So it's a new road. It had to be rebuilt.
Yeah, right.
So,
and these are some of the lesser known things, and they're because they're in tropical areas. You do get those big storms, and I think it was Hurricane Eta that was the culprit of the Morgan Estate sort of tragedy. Moving on now, how does being a barista champion relate to the real world? And this is something that I feel like is kind of, in a way, it's like one of the things that we do well on coffee, but it's also one of the things we do terribly bad at in coffee. And I'm not quite sure which camp I sit on.
Yep.
So do you think competition right now, both in brewers and barista, is relatable to service in the real world?
Definitely. I think obviously it's hard because we're put on a stage, and that's not how you serve coffee in a cafe, right? So there's an element of that where it's a theatrical performance, and it has to be because we're putting across ideas and we have to do it in an interesting way. But I mean, we see a lot of things come from barista competition, and it pushes us. And I can speak on behalf of Axel, I guess, and that barista competition has pushed us to be better within our own cafes. Matt's obviously an amazing coffee roaster, and we look over every single roast for barista competition, and think of ways to improve. And that gets translated to our everyday coffee that we serve in our cafe. So I think what we're doing on stage, we are trying to implement that back into the cafe. And, you see things like scales and, like all these different tools are made for the barista stage, and then they get transferred onto real life, like, the wave machine that's, coming to Project Zero.
Yeah. No, I just purchased one.
I guess like it's awesome. Gary's got this amazing tool, and we used it on the stage last year, and now it's coming into cafe. So I think it's,
Let's unpack that for someone who doesn't know what we're talking about, because we mentioned it a few times now. So the wave machine is basically something that pulses electromagnetic waves through a sample of liquid.
Yes.
And in this case, coffee. And the application for it in industry is to clean balustrade water from...
That's one. Yeah. So it's basically, it can be used for like algae control and sort of large bodies of water. So like cooling towers and anything that needs a way of cleaning water that you don't want to introduce chemicals.
Yeah.
Basically.
Okay. So that's that. And the impact on coffee is quite remarkable, really. So, I mean, we tried it on some cold brew of ours and did some experimenting. It actually improves the shelf life of a lot of things as well. Mm-hmm. So, we just got one. Looking forward to that. I tried the Barista Champion of the UAE. He used it for his milk, which I think you did as well.
Yeah.
That was excellent. So
yes.
Another good use. What do you think of like the maybe top 3 things that you've seen on a barista competition stage that now influence coffee?
Yeah, I mean scales.
Scales.
That's a big one, right? Like we all use scales and we don't think twice about it, right? But we measure these variables in competition, and then it trickles on to everyday cafe life. And I think a lot of people don't realize that it's come from these barista competitions.
Who was the first to use that?
Good question. I
feel like Matt Perger really popularized it.
Yes, for sure. I don't know if he was at first or not. I don't want to say anything wrong, but we're going to
fact check that one
for sure. But I think, just touching back on that last question as well, I think, what barista competition can mean for like the community, I guess, and the industry. I think the other thing that's super important about that is it gives like something to inspire, like too, right? Like it's a place to test our skills and challenge ourselves. And I think for me as a barista, it's definitely helped me with my career, obviously, and just be inspired, because if I didn't have barista competition, like, I feel like potentially I could have drifted off to something else, but this was a way to connect with the industry, connect with producers, connect with people from all around the world. So I think other than sort of creating, cool ideas and putting them on stage and sharing them and talking about our amazing industry, I think it's something that challenges us all. And it's just something that connects us. So I think it serves, it's multi-purposed.
So going back to the top 3 now, because I want my top 3.
Yeah.
So, scales could be one.
Okay, I need to think about this. There's just been so many good things. Like, I mean, I want to say waved, but obviously I used it, so I'm a bit biased there. But I think it was a
I think that'll the beginning. That's just the beginning for that sort of piece of technology.
For sure. And I don't want to say it was me, because, I didn't invent the piece of equipment either. It's obviously Gary, and I was very glad that he trusted me to present that on the world stage as well. So, I think, Gary's waved is something that could be implemented, and I'm seeing it being implemented across, cafes, which is awesome. And there's probably things behind the scenes that we're not thinking about, like roast profiles and, I think things like this and like extraction methods and the way we taste and the protocol, like, often we use at Axel, like the protocol from the WBC. So I think even just implementing those set of rules and the way we talk about coffee into everyday sort of, workflow in the cafe, I think is a huge thing. Yeah. It's not something that someone presented, but it's something we all use and we implement in cafes every day to make better coffee.
Well, another thing, Matt Perger using the EK back when he was
sure.
That changed the way coffee was made, overnight. And,
100%.
It was really cool. I like what Dale Harris did. I mean, not something that you really see every day, but like it's something that really changed the way I think about coffee.
Sure.
And Mickey Suzuki with a double grinding.
Yes.
I would encourage anyone listening to this to watch that as well. Anthony with the The
Autocomb?
the autocomb.
Yes,
That's
yes.
something that's widely seen. We've got one in the cafe. I'm sure there's one in a whole bunch of Axel shops. So
Yeah, of course.
um,
I still use it now.
yeah, blending milks. There's
Yes.
there's like pretty interesting blending coconut milk and full cream milk together at different concentrations and all
Yeah,
that sort of
because
stuff.
you wouldn't really think about it otherwise, right? Because people aren't really ordering that at the cafe, but yeah, now it's in vogue and it's like, yeah, we're exploring different flavor profiles.
Who do you think is like one of your favorite barista competitors of all time?
Oh, there's lots, but Ben
Wait,
Port.
what?
Oh, sorry.
I was gonna say we should say the same one on three.
Ah, yeah.
I was gonna say Ben Port too.
Yeah, but there's been lots. Lex Weniger was another good one that I loved. I loved his performance style, and yeah, that was another good one. But there's been lots. Maxwell,
Maxwell.
amazing. Yeah, there's been a lot, but yeah, they're probably my picks.
Yeah, Maxwell is definitely a good one. Who won it last year? Mikhail. And
Mikhail. Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. Oh, we'll get to that. And then, well, it was good. I actually interviewed him and Borum in Jakarta, and like, I feel like the status of a world barista champion is just kind of growing.
For sure.
Each
Yeah.
year. Like, and a lot of people think that it's not really important to a coffee industry. And I really disagree with that. I think you need to have something to aspire to.
Yeah.
Like, having a bit of aspiration, being able to achieve something, be the number one. I think it's really important.
100%. And like I was touching on before, I think it's super important, especially for me and like every other barista competitor I've seen. It's just helps us make better coffee. And like, we've just got this continued drive to just keep improving, which is awesome.
What would you like to see more of in the coffee industry on that note? Like, it's just...
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if this just sounds cliche, but I think just more connection with producers, because it's one of those things with wine, right? You have a sommelier comes over to you in a restaurant and knows so much about this bottle of wine. But for coffee, I feel like while there's a lot of people doing it well, it's not commonplace. And we've got so many cafes around Melbourne and the world, which I think we're a little removed. Like, understandable, not everyone can go to Origin and do these trips and have these connections. So I totally get that. But I think it's important to be able to share someone's product. And, 95% of the coffees that I use and serve in day-to-day life, like, I've never met the producer, but I think it's important to really appreciate their work and just learn a bit more. And if we can be that sort of that voice and be able to share this information with customers that, they don't work in the industry, I think that's our role. And I think if we can continually chip away and improve that as an industry, I think would be an amazing thing.
Well, if you win the World Barista Championship this time around, like, what would you want to be remembered for? Like, what message would you want to carry?
Yeah, it'd be a tough ask. Obviously, there's a lot of good competitors around the world, but all striving for the same thing. But yeah, I think it's. I feel like I'm deflecting these questions on you, but it's like, I don't want to make it about me, right? Like, I obviously want to be a good representative for specialty coffee, regardless if I win, lose, or draw, or finish by a point, or lose by a point. But I just want to be a good representative for specialty coffee, and I'll do my part and not make it about myself, I guess. Not saying anyone is, but really, put those spotlights on people that are doing amazing things in the industry, and hopefully be a voice and have this expectation where we are, representing producers a little more and, showcasing these things that make our industry amazing. So less about me, I guess, and more about what makes this industry amazing. And if I can be that conduit to that for more people, I would love to be that.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because, and I've said this a few times on the podcast already, so I'm sorry to those who've already heard this, but I was really taken aback by what Carlos Escobar did this year at Brewers Cup. And I just thought, he carried a message that we should all be talking about, and it's kind of like, there's a lot of producers that are getting up in age now. They're nearing 60 years old in average age, and there's not really a younger generation taking over the farms. So you think of climate change as an issue. You think of diseases that affect coffee plants. Well, actually, who's the next generation growing our coffee? And so what do we do there? And I think he kind of highlighted that issue that we all need to start talking about now.
Yeah, he's a good representative for that, right? Obviously, he's from Colombia and has had a big connection with a lot of producers as well. So, it's a problem, but I think each country has their own sort of, own challenges they need to overcome. And obviously that's a huge one in the coffee industry, and it's hard to have an answer for it, right? Obviously paying more for green, I think is number one, the best thing that we can do. We are seeing prices, slowly coming up. But yeah, I think it's still, while they are up and we are paying more, I think we need to continue sort of paying this level for prices and charging accordingly for it, right? So we don't want cafe owners to miss out, or do it tough, and we don't want coffee producers to do it tough. But the price of $1 increase for a cafe owner in a bag of coffee, a kilo of coffee, is equates to roughly 3 cents per cup. And I know anyone that's buying coffee every day would be more than happy to pay an extra 3 cents, for an extra $1 per kilo, right? So I think we have that mentality where we can continue to pay more for this product and make it viable for producers, for cafe owners. I think it's super important. It's not, we don't want just one person winning out. We want to make it fair for everyone, right? So I think that's step number one.
Yeah, well, I think that's an interesting point you raised about prices obviously being elevated from where they were, let's say, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I've checked the price this morning. I think it was about $3.03 per pound.
Yeah.
Which is significantly lower than it was a few months ago.
Yeah, it's dropped about $1. Yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of hope it stays around this level for those reasons you just mentioned. And look, it's I think during COVID it was under $1 per pound. So it's right now it's more than 3 times that.
I mean, the other tricky thing is some producers don't have coffee to sell. Like the stock levels in some of these producing countries are quite low. So as much as the price is going up, sometimes they don't have enough to sell, right? Supply and demand. But yeah, I was touching on it before. It's like we've got 2 issues going on here. It's like the cost of running a cafe and what we need to charge as cafe owners to make a profit, and then the green price. And I think if we really separate these 2 things, I think it's important. I think we still need to be paying more for green, even if it's at a high price now. Doesn't actually equate to too much in the cup. And I think if we keep these separate and think about it like that, I really think it's important for longevity of the industry and getting producers that aren't aging and people that are young and still want to do this and make it worthwhile.
Well, going back to that concept again of hearing something and understanding it, and relating it to what you're kind of saying about connecting to producers and things like that. And I think this is probably a bit more of a cynical thing to say, but I think slapping the story on a bag, it doesn't really do much realistically. Like the effectiveness of that is not that high.
Yes,
the efficacy, I guess you'd say. Whereas I'm really hopeful that in the future there's things like virtual reality that can kind of take people to the farm digitally.
Yes,
and doing things like what I do, like I want to travel a lot more this year and make content at coffee farms.
Yes.
So we just went to a coffee farm in Bandung and having that experience myself, but being able to share it with other people, hopefully that just draws a few more people.
Yes.
Really hoping we can go to Saudi Arabia this year and tell the story of that coffee and perhaps Panama next year and Colombia as well. But I think that's the thing. That's the next big challenge for us.
Yeah.
Because again, hearing, understanding, they're 2 different things.
100%. Now, I think you've got large companies that do these marketing claims and, saying they're buying 100% Arabica and things like that. I think it probably dilutes the message that we're trying to send because, they're like, oh, is it Arabica? But it's a deeper thing than that, right? But yeah, I think it's up to people like us, right? You've got a podcast. I'm on the barista stage. I think it's, and a lot of people listening would be specialty coffee professionals. So I think it's up to us to deliver this message because people aren't going to do it for us. So we're the people that need to make this impact. And we're pretty far removed from origin, right? And they're difficult places to get to. But if there's ways we can connect and learn more about these stories and share them, I think that's what's going to make the impact.
Coffee's been such a lifesaver for me. And you're especially connected to what I'm about to say now is because I tried to leave. I was so done with it at one stage. I'd fallen on some difficult business conditions with what I was doing previously.
Yeah.
And I moved back to Sydney for a little while and I started working in a chlorine factory. So my job during COVID was packing chlorine into bottles and for like a year.
Yeah.
And, driving a forklift. So I was working in a factory and there was just this emptiness inside of me. Like no shame to anyone that does that at all. Job's a job. I respect that. But it just wasn't me. And I felt like I lost a part of myself. And I reckon once every week, maybe 2 weeks for a good stretch there, I called you on the phone and, you consoled me a lot of the time. And, and kind of, I remember those discussions really well. But that's why I love this industry so much, because so many people that do it, they forego a career in something else where they could make much more money.
For sure.
A lot of people leave coffee because they have to go work a job to support a family and stuff like that. Like I know a guy that, loved what he was doing in coffee, but he ended up going and being a prison guard and he hates it because like he's got to support his family.
Yes.
But that's what it is to me. And it's such a lifesaver. And where this is relevant to this podcast is what I'm about to kind of come up with next is like, I've never encountered something that has been such a bridge for people. I mean, you go and talk about, a business discussion, you have it over a coffee. You look at what Jerry Seinfeld went viral for, I think it was last year, when he was saying coffee is the greatest thing in your life. You'll always remember back at that cup of coffee and like, maybe there was an element of sarcasm there, but he's right. He's dead right. And for me, it's a bridge. It's a peacemaker for so many different things. And so, and I thought about this all comes to this point is that I was thinking about if I ever do barista competition again, what would the routine be about?
Yeah.
And I think it would be world peace. And hear me out here. And, a lot of people will think, Kirk, you're crazy. But there's so much conflict going on in this world right now. And a lot of these things are hashed out at, summits and things like that. Global leaders will catch up and they'll negotiate things at these summits. Trade deals will be brokered. Ceasefires will be brokered. Whatever. There's myriad different things. For me, and people will think I'm insane for saying this, but I really do 100% in my heart believe it. I want to be there at one of those things, making coffee for leaders. And it's like, they've got all these things that they're willing to die for, that they're willing to kill for. But what are you willing to live for? I feel like that's such a more important thing to ask yourself. What are you willing to live for? And for me, like, I want to, if I was ever to do it again, it would be around that topic. And truly, I would want to be there at those events, making coffee for world leaders, being like, quite frankly, I don't give a shit what your politics are, but, let's solve issues and let's let coffee be a conduit or at least one thing that brings people together. You know what I mean?
I really want to see this barista routine. It sounds very interesting.
Yeah, and there's people that might think, I'm treating these things trivially, and it's like actually the furthest thing from it.
Yeah,
it's like there's, having a cup of coffee to sit down is like such a ritual, or a setting or a format for so many things that, I just think I truly do believe in my heart of hearts, like that needs to happen one day. It's probably what I'll do.
Yeah.
How would you go break it? Unpacking with an Australian Barista Champion these days. How would I sell that message?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think you've chosen a really tough topic, which I don't know heaps about, to be honest. But that's super tough. Look, if you can make it work, I mean, all the power to you. But that'd be a tough one.
Yeah. People really do think I'm crazy. And on the last podcast and speaking with Cole and David from By the Drip about it previously, like, I'm not an entrepreneur. I've got a business. Yeah, I want it to grow, all that. Great. I'm more like a specialty coffee Jehovah's Witness. So I'm just here to spread the good word.
Yes.
And, the amount of money that I make is kind of like secondary to, preaching that message. And that's what I love about the coffee industry so much.
Yeah, I think I meet so many people that it's just like, they used to be an accountant or they're a lawyer or something, and now they're in coffee. And it's like, I think coffee is more important and more of a passion, and that's why we all do it, right? Like, it's not about making money; it's about making tasty coffees, having this connection, and working with our passions. And I feel like it's a very unique industry. I'm sure there's some others out there that do play into this as well. But man, like there's nowhere else I would rather work than the coffee industry. And I've tried to leave a few times as well, just like yourself. And I think it keeps drawing me back in where it's like, no, this is my passion. This is what I want to do. And, you know, I speak to friends that are out of the industry on the weekends and they all look forward to Friday. You know, it's like, finish for the week, get the weekend. But I'm like, where am I going to go for coffee on Saturday? You know, what's happening on the weekend? Like, let's, you know, it just keeps evolving, and it doesn't feel like work.
Well, yeah, I had a friend say this to me. She works as a public servant. So I think last I knew, worked at like the National Archive.
Yeah.
So yeah, sounds like a bit of a, you know, that would be a tough slog for me. I would not be able to do that.
Some people
job.
like it. Some people like it.
Well, look, but she said to me, like, you're so lucky that you have this thing in your life. Like, I would trade so much of what I have for what you've got, which is like, you know, that sort of sense of purpose. And to give you again, if you don't already think I'm crazy from what I just said to now, like when my head hits the pillow, one of the thoughts every single time is like, what coffee am I going to drink tomorrow? Like, I can't wait to go dial in coffee.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, when I'm going to bed, I'm not thinking about, damn, I have to work tomorrow. I'm like, yes, I get to work tomorrow.
You know what's funny? I've had that thought quite often, and like I'm very lucky to be able to taste some amazing coffees very often with barista training. But yeah, sometimes I'll go to bed, obviously thinking about my routine and everything. But it's like, I'm gonna open this bag of coffee tomorrow and try it, and it's like the first thought just before you're about to fall asleep, or the last thought. Sorry.
And you know me, I get up early every day.
Yeah.
Like I'm naturally jacked up kind of guy, but. You know, on the weekends when my girlfriend wants to sleep, I'm like, nah, we're up.
Make some coffee.
Like we're at that cafe when it opens.
Yeah.
You know? And it's just, it truly is. It's a very fortunate position to be in. And I reckon
100%.
there'd be a lot of people tuning in right now that are like, yeah, I agree with you. So if you are, cheers to you. All right, let's get back on topic. What are you kind of optimistic about? You know, there's a lot of reasons to be. I guess, you know, there's a lot of challenges in the coffee industry, but
yes,
you know, I'm on the record of saying that I think there's actually a lot more things that we should be excited for than kind of, you know, feeling down for.
Yeah.
What are you optimistic about?
Yeah, I've been saying it for a while, I think, and a lot of other people have as well, that I think we're in sort of the early stages of sort of specialty coffee. And what I mean by is that I think, you know, you look at the wine industry and it feels very developed and they've got a lot of techniques and it's very... like it seems like it's been around for a long time, which it obviously has. Specialty coffee, I feel like is, you know, it's only really been around and had this big boom in the last 15, 20 years. So I feel like we're very new in this industry, and then every year something new is coming out. And I think we're so lucky to be able to be part of the industry right now. Because, I mean, you would know, like we're trying coffees every year and it's just like, I haven't tried that before. A new fermentation method and different ways of presenting coffees. And I remember when I first started, you know, a washed Ethiopian used to be, you know, floral and, you know, citrus and like, you know, every origin would have its profile. And now it's like, it could be anything. And we're so lucky. So I feel like we're still in these early stages and I can't wait for another 5 years to see what we're tasting and what we can experience. And it's exciting to be a part of.
If you could go back and have one coffee again, what would it be?
Oh,
because for me, I always think of those washed Kenyans from like, you know,
yeah,
because you can't really get them in the same way that you could before.
Yes.
There's a variety of different reasons for that, but I think like an old school washed Kenyan espresso would be what I'd go back and have.
Yeah, I think the first coffee that I used for competition, it was a Cateron. And I used that and it was a washed Colombian coffee. And I remember it just being so textural and it was like mangoes and yogurt. It was just like this amazing coffee and I'd love to have that coffee again.
It's funny. Like I kind of remember coffees. Like I remember, I don't know, football players or Pokemon.
Yeah.
You know, all those sorts of things. Like I just, you know, they're always in here. You know, they're always in my head. I remember them fondly. What would you like to see more of in the future? Like, you know, there's what may happen, but what would you like to see happen?
Yeah, I think, what would I like to see? I think it's seeing producers do what they want, not being held back by certain expectations, I guess. You know, I want them to explore coffees in different ways and whatever is going to, you know, help them succeed. I want to see like I think we can be very critical on some coffees, you know, and infused coffees are one of those things that I think gets a bad rap. You know, I'm not a huge fan of those infused coffees, but there's people that love them, right? But I just want to be open and I want coffees to be in all different shapes and sizes and to people enjoy whatever they like. So just that inclusivity, I think, of all these different styles, I think.
Well, just on that infused coffee subject, because I'm someone who's had a business exclusively selling, frozen high-end coffees and then, low-end coffees. And now I kind of find myself at this point in between where what can I serve to people daily and repeatedly?
Yeah.
And co-fermented coffees is one of those things. It's like we sell those daily.
Yep.
And people, it's actually a blessing for the specialty coffee industry, in my opinion, because people can try it and they're like, well damn, I taste strawberry every time. But if I have a natural Ethiopian that, I can't always taste the blueberry. I can't always taste the strawberry or whatever. But with a strawberry co-fermented coffee, you can.
Yeah.
And they taste quite good.
Yeah, for sure.
I actually think it's been a blessing for the coffee industry.
But it also shows how hard to make a good coffee is, right? Well, I mean, it's not hard, but like it's a lot of skill, right?
Yeah.
Like comes from producing the coffee, shipping the coffee, storing it, roasting it, and then extracting it. Like all these little variables, like there's nothing else like it, right? Like whereas there's so many variables that can impact the flavor of coffee. So to see infused, it's like cool, like it tastes like things and it's amazing, right? But I think it shows me, it's like, oh, there's actually a lot of skill in making, a washed Ethiopian sing, right?
Yep.
Because there's so many variables and we can make mistakes along the way.
Well, Kai Jansen interviewed him recently and he kind of explained, modern day coffee production is almost kind of like winemaking. Because, but if you were to compare the two, like wineries have so many more resources and so much more capital and so much more infrastructure involved with them,
For sure.
that they can make those high quality wines. Like a winery, essentially anywhere you need a fair bit of capital equipment, is my understanding.
Yep.
Whereas a coffee producer, like they don't always have access to the same level of infrastructure, and the hills to harvest these things are like, even it's hard. I would say it's harder to do.
I mean, I've seen slopes where I'm like, I couldn't even walk down that and there's guys picking coffee.
Oh, when I was in Indonesia, like I had to take the backpack for the videographer because he was struggling to get up the hill. And then I made the silly mistake of wearing a short sleeve shirt and shorts, and I was just getting absolutely destroyed by mosquitoes. Like, the environments that it takes to grow these coffees is hectic.
But
so
you think about winemaking, right? Obviously, they've got that capital and all this equipment, and they can make a beautiful bottle of wine. That's what producers are doing, and then we've got all these other steps afterwards as well.
Yeah.
So we've got all these extra variables to make an amazing coffee. So yeah, it's one thing to produce it, but then we need to make sure we're taking care of it and doing our best job to express it the way the producer wants.
Well, let me just unpack that a little bit more. So we're comparing essentially, once the production's made and you've bottled it and stuff like that, you pop the cork and, provide it stored, the experience is pretty consistent and deliverable. With coffee, then everyone roasts it differently. Do they roast it correctly? Everyone packages it differently. Is it packaged well? Everyone grinds it differently, brews it differently.
Ages it differently.
So there's so many more things that you can get wrong with coffee that I guess,
For sure.
people, and I guess that's probably another thing along with producers as well. Like another thing that we can educate the consumer on.
Yeah.
And I think home brewing is something that's kind of like bringing that to light for people. Like, home brewing's, excellent really, because there's never been a more informed coffee consumer than there is now.
Yeah.
So that's a plus.
100%. Yeah. It's just like, there's just so many variables in coffee. And I think that's what makes it so interesting, right? Like we're just in this world where to give you an example, right? Like I had 3 different coffees for the national championship of options to use for espresso, just because it's so volatile. I'm like, okay, I don't know what the water's going to be like. I don't know, obviously these coffees are super expensive, so I don't get many opportunities to see how they're aging and what the best window or day to serve these coffees after roast is. So I had 3 coffees on the day, and I'm like, okay, as much as I replicate the setup back at Axel, like I don't know what it's going to taste like on the day.
You don't have to agree with this in any way, because I know you've got a competition coming up, so you don't want to incriminate yourself. But I want to see the EK43 come back to competition, or at least a single dose grinder. And I know you can modify the current one to kind of do that.
Yeah.
And some people have, but like I feel like that, that level of creativity that you could have before, it's dropped off a bit.
Yeah, I think it's look. There's always variables that are locked, or the machinery. Like we can't change those, and there's a set of rules. Yes, I love that you can do those single serve coffees. I think that's amazing. However, I think whatever the competition is at the moment, with different grinders and different sponsors, I think it's always a challenge to get familiarize yourself with this piece of equipment. And it makes you think outside the box, right? Sometimes it's easier to do a single serve, but if you've got a stationary grinder that you have to put, a minimum of 500 grams, for example, it challenges you to think outside the box, because most coffees are served in cafes from a grinder like this. So they're not served from single dose grinders. High-end stuff are, obviously, but so it forces you to think outside the box, which I think is great.
Yeah. No, that's a good answer. What other countries are doing things well that you think we should be aware of in terms of, like, I'm talking about cafe culture now. Like, we're obviously based in Melbourne. I think, from what I hear, Copenhagen's an excellent coffee city. Seoul, South Korea is an excellent coffee city.
Yeah.
Tokyo, I've been there, excellent coffee city.
Yeah.
Where else do you think are doing amazing things?
Ooh, shout out to Montreal, I think.
Montreal.
Yeah, I used to live there, for anyone that didn't know. But yeah, I think the coffee scene there is really picking up, and Canada in general. Like we've got people like Ben Pudd over there who's doing amazing things and is a big role model for the industry. I think those guys are doing an amazing job. So it's a little inside tip there.
I spoke to Reese Woods about this a few days ago. Ben roasted all the coffee for Best of Panama, which must have been like a somewhat nervous job. But the results that came out of Best of Panama this year were unbelievable. On paper, it's like a 98 scoring coffee. Have you ever tried a 98-point coffee?
Oh, I don't know if I have. Yeah, I mean, I've tasted some very good coffees.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think so. I would love to if I ever got the opportunity.
Yeah. I wonder if like any other countries will really compete with Panama on that level in the future.
Yeah, I think it's obviously there's one thing that you've got a cup score, but I think it's an appreciation for coffees can be so many different things, right? Like we were talking about infused coffees and people love them. So yes, Panama have these excellent, amazing coffees that are just, to die for. But other origins have their own flavor profiles and uniqueness, I guess. So I feel like if we consider every origin by itself and what they can deliver, I think that's super important. But cup score is one thing, but to have a super interesting coffee from, I was in Brazil and I visited Dateira, and the coffees from there were amazing. And it's just mind blowing, because it's like, okay, this is low altitude. It's a different style of coffee production, and these coffees are just like crazy. Like they're so good.
That's somewhere else I really want to go, because I interviewed Gabriel Ogrelli from
amazing guy.
Dateira. Yeah,
so knowledgeable,
incredible guy. But you're right. I think they go about it in a different way.
Yeah.
And this is kind of like, this is what makes coffee so good, because you can appreciate things from different regions. And the good thing about it is they don't do it the same. That's the good thing about it.
Exactly.
Because you get more variety. So, I 100% agree. And hopefully I can go to Dateira one day and tell a bit of that story, because
honestly, that was like such a eye-opening experience that, obviously they send the top 6 from the WBC, and it was an amazing experience. And just the level of detail that they go to is honestly, it's impressive.
Look, I think we just about have to wrap it up now, and what a good note to wrap it up on. Jack Simpson got a campaign for the World Barista Championship coming up. Wish you the best of luck. You'll do Australia very proud regardless. But I'm confident for you. I mean, you've got some good competition, always do.
Yes.
And everyone's bringing it from every country, but I don't know, I'm feeling good.
Thank you. Well,
feeling good.
Hopefully I can just do my best and make everyone proud. And if I do that, then I'll be stoked.
Quick mention of our sponsor here as well, Time More Coffee Products. So Time More produce grinders, hand grinders, kettles, scales, anything you need for home. Home brewing is such a big thing these days. TimeMore.com. Also, if you want to give us a bit of love, ProjectZero.coffee if you're based in Australia and you would like to order some coffee. And finally, do me a favor, like and subscribe. Jack, do you think they should like and subscribe?
100%.
Yeah, they should like and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, follow us on Instagram, all that sort of stuff. Would really be appreciated. All right, let's wrap it up here. Thanks so much for coming on again.
Thanks, Kirk.
Generous with your time. Hooroo, everyone.